On the edge of the galaxy, a small planet orbited a star that many believed to be inconsequential to the larger universe. This planet was Earth, and its inhabitants were known as humans. The galaxy knew little about them, but rumors began to spread in the darker corners of space about a strange species with an uncanny ability to survive the harshest of conditions. Some whispered they were weak, others claimed they were something more. There were no records to confirm or deny their potential, yet a quiet curiosity started to grow among the alien races who had been studying other planets for centuries. At first, humans seemed like just another species to be overlooked, their technology primitive, their population scattered and divided. Yet there was something about their presence that caught the attention of a few outsiders who had witnessed the humans' strange resilience. They were known to endure hardship. Unlike any other race, their cities could be ravaged by natural disasters. Their armies could be defeated in battle, but somehow they always rebuilt with even more strength than before. It wasn't long before these rumors began to stir the interest of more powerful alien civilizations who were accustomed to subjugating lesser species in order to expand their empires. One such species was the Carrack, a fierce warrior race known throughout the galaxy for their brutal tactics and advanced weaponry. The Carrack had destroyed countless civilizations and conquered entire star systems. They believed that no species could stand in their way. After all, the galaxy was vast, and they had never encountered a force that couldn't be overwhelmed. When the Carrack first heard the whispers about the humans, they laughed it off. They saw no reason to worry about a primitive species living on an insignificant planet far from the heart of galactic affairs. However, the whispers did not die, they only grew louder. Soon the Carrack began to take notice of the increasing number of ships from other species that seemed to approach Earth. No weapons, no attacks, but something else had drawn them to this strange world. It was the humans' will to survive that began to attract attention more than their technology, more than their politics or culture. It was their indomitable nature that sparked intrigue among the galaxy's greatest minds. Even the most battle-hardened commanders had started to wonder what made these humans so difficult to break. It wasn't long before the Carrack decided to investigate for themselves. They reasoned that even if the humans were harder to defeat than expected, their planet was still vulnerable, and they would crush whatever resistance they offered with their unmatched firepower. The invasion began quietly at first. An unknown fleet appeared in the skies over Earth, their ships massive and imposing. They launched waves of scouts and bombardments designed to cripple the planet's defenses. They expected to make quick work of the humans, but the response they encountered was unlike anything they had prepared for. It wasn't a fight that could be easily won or lost. It was something deeper, something that went beyond mere battle strategies or advanced technology. In that moment, the Carrack realized they might have made a grave mistake. The humans weren't simply survivors. They were something else, something untouchable, but no one yet knew why or how. The Carrack commanders watched in disbelief as their ships were met with a response they couldn't have predicted. The humans were not cowering or fleeing in fear. Instead, they were fighting back with a savage intensity that shook the Carrack. Their core, Earth's primitive weaponry, was no match for the Carrack's advanced fleets. But it wasn't the weapons that threw the invaders off. It was the humans' sheer unpredictability and desperation. Every move they made seemed erratic yet calculated, as if they had no regard for their own survival. But the Carrack soon realized this was not recklessness. It was something far more dangerous, an instinctual drive to keep going no matter the odds. The humans refused to give up. They refused to accept defeat. The Carrack had faced countless species before. Some fought back, others surrendered, but no species had ever fought with this level of relentless determination. It was as if every human had an unspoken understanding that their very existence depended on the fight itself, and the Carrack found themselves in unfamiliar territory. They were not just fighting a species, they were fighting an idea, a force of nature that could not be easily subdued. As the battle raged on, Carrack ships began to suffer unexpected damage. Alien technology malfunctioned in the face of humanity's persistence. Weapon systems failed, communications were severed, and shields faltered in ways that didn't make sense to the invaders. Something about Earth's environment or its inhabitants seemed to disrupt the Carrack's advanced systems. The more they pressed forward, the more resistance they encountered. Each human seemed to be able to adapt to the changing circumstances Quickly their tactics shifted in real time, responding to each new wave of Carrack assault with a kind of ingenuity that baffled their attackers. Even their cities, which the Carrack thought would be easy targets, became a challenge as human forces used the terrain to their advantage. The invaders found themselves in a constant game of cat and mouse, where every victory was followed by an unexpected setback, and every loss was followed by a new strategy. As the days passed, the Carrack found themselves caught in a loop of frustration. Their commanders had expected to conquer Earth within a matter of days, but instead, they were bogged down in a war of attrition. They could not win. The humans refused to relent. They were relentless. Even when outmatched and outgunned, they kept pushing forward, using whatever they had at their disposal to fight back. Meanwhile, the Carrack began to notice another strange phenomenon. The longer the conflict went on, the stronger the humans seemed to become. Their resolve was like a fire that only grew hotter with each passing day. The Carrack began to suspect that the humans were not just fighting for survival. They were fighting for something far greater, something they could not understand. The Carrack had been invincible for so long that they had forgotten what it felt like to face a species that could not be intimidated or broken, but now they were experiencing it firsthand. The human spirit was untouchable. It was something that could not be destroyed or crushed, and the more the Carrack tried to dominate them, the more they realized they had miscalculated in ways they could not yet comprehend. It became clear to the Carrack that they were no longer facing a simple battle. They were facing an unknown force that had no intention of surrendering, and that realization made them wonder if they had truly underestimated the humans, or if they had simply misunderstood what it meant to be human altogether. As the conflict dragged on, the Carrack began to recognize that their initial assumption about humans had been a grave miscalculation. They thought Earth would fall like every other planet they had invaded, but instead they found themselves facing an enemy that not only refused to break, but seemed to grow stronger with every wave of battle. The Carrack had studied countless species before, but none had fought with the sheer willpower the humans displayed. It wasn't just that the humans were fighting back with determination, it was that they adapted in ways the Carrack could not predict. Their technology may have been far behind the Carracks, but they used it with an unpredictable genius. They knew how to turn disadvantage into strength, no matter how desperate the situation became. One particular Carrack commander who had been overseeing the invasion's ground operations began to notice something unsettling. Whenever their forces made significant advances and captured key cities, the humans would regroup and retake the lost ground faster than they could anticipate. It was as if the very heart of Earth's resistance was an ever-growing network of fighters who could not be contained. At first, the Carrack tried to enforce curfews and blockades, but the humans found ways to circumvent them. They used underground tunnels, civilian infrastructures, even seemingly trivial technology to launch surprise attacks on Carrack positions. With alarming efficiency, they fought with a kind of resourcefulness that the Carrack had never encountered. What was more disturbing to the Carrack was the humans' collective mindset. They fought as though they were all connected, as if the entire planet shared one mind. The unity they displayed transcended national borders or cultural divisions. It didn't matter where the humans came from or what language they spoke. When the Carrack attacked one part of the world, the rest of humanity responded as though it was a global call to arms. Even their leaders were baffled. They had sent their most experienced and battle-hardened generals to Earth to handle the situation, yet no matter who they sent or what tactics they employed, they were always forced to regroup. They began to wonder if they were truly facing an enemy or a phenomenon, something more than a species, a force unlike anything they had ever seen before. One Carrack fleet, after suffering heavy losses in a particularly fierce battle over Europe, tried to retreat, but they soon found that their ships were not safe. Even in the vastness of space, human craft had begun to shadow their movements. They used makeshift weapons and scrap parts to launch attacks from every direction. Earth's atmosphere was teeming with the remnants of ships and drones the Carrack had destroyed, yet humans kept remaking their weapons and fighting back. Every time the Carrack believed they had secured an advantage, another wave of human ingenuity would strike back with a new plan, new weapons, new tactics that put them back at square one. But the greatest shock came when the Carrick leaders began to realize that humanity's spirit was their true weapon. It wasn't their technology or their military might that made them formidable. It was their unwillingness to accept defeat in the face of overwhelming odds. Every loss fueled their resolve to fight harder, to push further to survive. And that was the one thing the Carrick could not understand. And then the Carrick began to feel something else. A fear creeping into the hearts of even their bravest warriors, the fear that perhaps they had already lost. They had underestimated the humans, not just as a species, but as a force of nature, a force that once provoked would never back down or surrender. It was a realization that made the Carrick question their very understanding of strength and survival. The humans had already begun to turn the tide, not through sheer numbers or overwhelming firepower, but through their most potent weapon of all, the will to endure. As the weeks stretched into months, the Carrick's confidence continued to crumble beneath the weight of humanity's relentless resistance. What they had initially thought would be a swift and decisive victory had turned into a nightmare they could not escape. The humans weren't simply defending themselves. They were adapting to every move the Carrick made, outsmarting their tactics and defying all expectations. Every failed assault revealed a new layer to humanity's resilience that the invaders had never anticipated. One of the greatest surprises to the Carrick was how quickly the humans adapted technologically. Their weapons, initially rudimentary compared to Carrick standards, evolved in response to the invasion. It wasn't just a matter of advanced engineering or superior materials. It was as if the humans understood how to extract every ounce of potential from their limited resources. They started to build crude but highly effective countermeasures using scavenged Carrick technology and reverse-engineered tactics. Even the most advanced Carrick ships, which had once seemed invincible, began to suffer damage they couldn't explain. Shields flickering in the presence of human-built weapons, propulsion systems stalling under unexpected electromagnetic interference. The Carrick sent their best engineers to try and figure out how the humans were bypassing their technology, but even their brightest minds were stumped. There were no patterns, no logical explanation for the way the humans seemed to manipulate every situation to their advantage. No one had ever seen anything like it. No species had ever been so resourceful, so willing to sacrifice everything just to survive. Back on Earth, humans were no longer just fighting to defend their homes. They were fighting for something much larger, something that had always been there, buried beneath the surface. As the Carrick forces continued to press on, human unity only grew stronger. Cities that had once been isolated from one another began to share information, resources, and strategies. The more the Carrick pushed, the more the humans came together as one, a global front that defied every attempt to divide them. It was as if Earth's very struggle for survival had awakened something deep within the human psyche, a collective consciousness that fought not just for the present but for the future. Across the planet, resistance groups, once scattered and fragmented, began to synchronize their efforts. What was once a patchwork of disjointed movements became a unified force, each group learning from the other, building on their successes, and adapting to new Carrick tactics in real time. The Carrick's military had always been a well-oiled machine, but it was now facing an enemy that seemed to anticipate every move, a species that fought as though they were all connected by a single purpose. One particularly brutal confrontation in the Pacific saw Carrick ships cornering human forces in an isolated region, their advantage overwhelming. Yet, in the face of certain annihilation, the humans did something unexpected. They retreated. At first, the Carrick were puzzled. Why would the humans flee when they had nowhere to go? But then they discovered what the humans were truly doing. They weren't retreating. They were regrouping. They used their tactical withdrawal to create an even stronger position, setting traps and ambushes along the way. In the span of a few days, the Carrick found themselves surrounded by an ambush far more elaborate than they had anticipated. It was in moments like this that the Carrick began to understand the true nature of their enemy. They were not facing a species bound by the usual laws of war, strategy, or even logic. They were facing a species that could not be easily predicted, a species that would never give up, no matter the cost. The Kerak had underestimated Earth's greatest asset, a gift they had failed to recognize in their initial arrogance: the human spirit. As the tides of battle shifted ever so slightly in humanity's favor, the Kerak began to wonder if they had already lost. The humans were not just survivors. They were a force that could not be broken, not through firepower, not through fear. And with every passing day, it became clearer that the Kerak would have to face a truth they had never even considered. Humanity wasn't just fighting for survival. They were fighting to prove something much deeper, something that could never be erased. As the war with the Kerak continued, a deep shift began to take place not just among the humans, but throughout the galaxy. News of their unexpected resistance spread like wildfire, and other species that had once written off Earth as insignificant began to take notice. At first, it was the whispers of alien traders and diplomats who spoke of a strange new force rising from a planet far removed from galactic politics. They were fascinated by the humans' resilience, but as more information leaked, the truth began to settle in: the Kerak were not winning. The Kerak had always prided themselves on their ability to crush resistance, to extinguish any flicker of defiance before it could grow into a blaze. But the humans had done the unthinkable. They had not only held their ground, they had turned the tide of war. Slowly but steadily, over the course of months, their relentless spirit was something the Kerak could neither understand nor destroy, and the galaxy took note. Other species, once too intimidated to speak of humanity, began to debate the significance of the humans' unexpected resistance. Was this a fluke, or had the Kerak encountered a species capable of something they had never faced before? Some questioned if the humans had unlocked a hidden potential, one that allowed them to defy logic itself. The Kerak's technology, advanced beyond anything the galaxy had ever seen, had failed time and again against the humans' ingenuity, their willpower, their unwillingness to accept defeat. The growing realization spread like a wildfire, and soon the galaxy began to ask itself a question that no one had dared to consider before. What if the humans were untouchable, not because of their technology or weapons, but because of their unyielding will to survive, to fight, to never surrender? At the heart of this revelation, a new understanding of humanity began to form among the galaxy's greatest minds. The humans were not just another species in the cosmic dance of life. They were a force that could not be predicted or conquered. They were the embodiment of persistence itself, a species that refused to bow to tyranny, no matter the cost. The Kerak, seeing their pride and arrogance crushed by the humans' defiance, began to question their own beliefs. It was a rare thing for an empire as powerful as theirs to encounter a species that didn't fear them, that didn't bend to their will. They had tried everything: firepower, subjugation, psychological warfare. But nothing worked. Humanity's spirit remained unbroken. They did not fear death. They did not fear defeat. And they were more than willing to sacrifice everything for the survival of their kind. In the wake of this growing understanding, the Kerak had no choice but to reevaluate their strategies. Even their fiercest commanders began to entertain the idea that they might not win this war. Some quietly feared that the humans might not just survive this onslaught. They might become something far more dangerous than anyone had ever imagined. The galaxy, once filled with species that saw humanity as a curiosity, began to shift in its perspective. The humans were no longer the fragile creatures the Kerak had first believed them to be. They had evolved into something far more formidable, something that other species could not ignore or dismiss. Their survival was no longer a matter of chance. It was a testament to their unique ability to adapt, to grow stronger, and to endure. But this realization wasn't just affecting the Kerak. It was reaching the ears of others across the stars. Species that had watched the humans with amusement now began to take them seriously. Whispers of human strength spread across the galaxy as a warning to any who dared challenge them. The humans had become a symbol of something the universe had long forgotten: a species that could not be touched, a species whose spirit was untamable. As word of humanity's unexpected resilience spread across the galaxy, a new reality began to take shape. The Kerak's failure to conquer Earth wasn't just a blow to their pride. It was a seismic shift that rippled through the entire galaxy. Species that had once seen humanity as a mere footnote in the grand story of the cosmos now began to pay attention, and with that attention came a mixture of fascination, fear, and respect. At first, the galaxy watched as neutral factions observed from afar, quietly assessing the unfolding situation. The Carrick, whose empire had been built on the systematic subjugation of weaker species, had encountered something that they couldn't break, no matter how hard they tried. The humans, those fragile beings from a backwater world, had turned their invasion into a struggle that no one had seen coming. The most powerful factions, those who had long held sway over galactic affairs, began to question their assumptions. They had always relied on their advanced technology, their ability to crush anything that stood in their way. But the Carrick's inability to overcome the humans brought a new realization, that maybe there were forces in the galaxy that couldn't be conquered by firepower alone. Maybe the true strength of a species lay not in its weapons or technology, but in its ability to survive, to fight against impossible odds, and to stand firm when every other species would have crumbled. Among these factions, the Valorians, a race of ancient philosophers and diplomats, began to see the humans as something more than a curiosity. They had always believed that the strength of a species lay in its wisdom and its capacity for understanding, but the humans had shown that there was another kind of strength, one that transcended knowledge, the strength of spirit. For the Valorians, this was a revelation. They sent emissaries to Earth, not to conquer or to exploit, but to learn from the humans. They saw the humans fight as a mirror of their own philosophy, a battle not for territory or power, but for something far more profound, the will to live. Meanwhile, the Ilren, a warrior species who had once looked down on humanity for their lack of advanced weaponry, were now reconsidering their place in the galaxy. The Ilren had prided themselves on their martial prowess, believing that combat was the true measure of a species' worth. But as they watched the humans, who had no true standing army and no superior weaponry, tear apart Carrick forces with nothing more than sheer will and ingenuity, they began to question their own values. The Ilren sent scouts to Earth to learn more about this strange new force. Was it possible that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't their skill in battle, but something deeper, something ingrained in their very nature? The Carrick, meanwhile, were in full retreat, their empire reeling from the defeat. It was a humiliation that they could not bear. The humans had not just resisted, they had shattered the myth of Carrick invincibility. For the first time in their history, the Carrick were faced with an enemy that had outlasted them, that had fought back with a ferocity they had never encountered before. And as the Carrick leaders met in private councils to discuss the war, they came to a painful conclusion. They could not fight this war any longer. It wasn't because they lacked the power. It was because the humans had revealed something to them that they could not defeat, the strength of an indomitable will. Across the galaxy, news of the Carrick's retreat sent shockwaves through the cosmic order. For the first time in millennia, the power dynamics in the galaxy began to shift. No longer would the Carrick dominate unchallenged. Other species began to openly discuss the possibility of forming alliances with humanity, not to conquer them, but to stand with them. The humans, it seemed, had become a symbol, a beacon of hope and defiance in a universe that had long forgotten what it meant to fight for something greater than oneself. The galaxy had watched as the Carrick tried to crush humanity, and now it watched in awe as the humans, against all odds, had come out on top. And as this new reality set in, one undeniable truth became clear. Humanity was no longer just a species. It was a force in the galaxy, a force that could not be ignored, a force that would change the course of history forever. As the Carrick retreated into the depths of space, licking their wounds and grappling with the bitter sting of their first major defeat, something profound began to shift across the galaxy. The humans, once thought to be insignificant and fragile, had proven to be the exact opposite, unyielding and indomitable. This was no longer just a fight for survival. It had become something far greater. The humans were not merely defending their planet. They were reshaping the balance of power in the galaxy itself. The Carrack's retreat did not go unnoticed. It was a monumental event that rippled through the cosmos, sending shockwaves through every corner of the galaxy. For centuries, the Carrack had been the uncontested conquerors, their fleets feared and respected by every species they encountered. But now, in the face of humanity's tenacity, the Carrack were forced to acknowledge a terrifying truth: they had lost. And it wasn't just the Carrack who recognized it. Every major power in the galaxy saw what had happened on Earth and knew that things had changed forever. The galaxy's political landscape was beginning to shift in ways no one could have predicted. Species that had once seen humanity as a mere curiosity now found themselves reconsidering their position. Diplomats, traders, and strategists began to seek out the humans, hoping to understand what had turned the tide. They had seen the humans fight back with a relentless spirit, but what else lay beneath the surface? Could this small, seemingly insignificant species be a powerful ally, or even a dangerous adversary? The first signs of this shift came from the Orcs, a highly intellectual species who had long been considered neutral in galactic affairs. For centuries, they had watched the Carrack conquer and dominate without ever lifting a finger. But when the Carrack failed to conquer Earth, the Orcs saw an opportunity to change their long-standing policy of isolationism. They began opening channels of communication with human leaders, eager to learn from their strength. They weren't just interested in military strategy. They wanted to understand the philosophy behind humanity's will to fight, the deep-seated drive that had carried them through an impossible war. Meanwhile, the Volteri, an aggressive and militaristic race who had once looked at humanity with scorn, began to view the humans in a new light. Though their warriors were fearsome and their armies vast, they couldn't help but respect the sheer courage and resolve the humans had displayed. In private councils, Volteri generals debated the idea of forming an alliance with humanity, something once unimaginable to them. If the Carrack couldn't defeat humanity, perhaps they had underestimated the human capacity for warfare, for strategy, and for sheer tenacity. The Volteri weren't the only ones rethinking their stance. The Trigeri, a race known for their ability to adapt to any environment, quietly began to study the humans' combat methods. They wanted to understand how the humans had turned the Carrack's greatest strengths against them. But the most surprising shift came from within the Carrack ranks themselves. Their leaders, once brimming with arrogance, were now faced with the undeniable fact that humanity was a force they could not subjugate. As the Carrack licked their wounds, some began to see the writing on the wall. There were those among the Carrack who argued that the old ways, domination through fear and power, had failed, and that perhaps a new approach was needed. There were even whispers of a faction within the Carrack military that proposed a peace treaty with humanity, something unthinkable only months before. But the question remained, could humanity ever truly be defeated? As the galaxy watched, the answer seemed clear. Humanity was untouchable. Not because of their technology or their might, but because of something far more profound, a relentless will to survive and to protect those they loved. And this truth became the foundation of something new in the galaxy, a symbol of resistance, a beacon of hope, and a reminder to every species that no matter how dark the odds seemed, the human spirit could never be broken. And so, the Carrack, though wounded and retreating, could no longer deny the most powerful truth of all. Humanity wasn't just a force to be reckoned with. Humanity had become a legend. As the dust of the Carrack retreat settled, the galaxy's perception of humanity had been forever altered. What had once been a quiet, overlooked planet in the far reaches of the cosmos had become a symbol of resilience, unity, and strength. No longer the fragile species that others had dismissed, humans now stood at the center of a galactic reckoning. Their victory over the Carrack had not only changed the course of their own history, but had set the stage for a new era in galactic relations. Across the stars, discussions were taking place, both in public forums and in the dark corners of space where covert alliances were made. The humans' unexpected victory had created a ripple effect that no one could ignore. Species that had long seen humanity as beneath their notice were now considering them with newfound respect, or even fear. The sheer willpower, the refusal to be broken under the weight of the Carrick's brutality, had shattered the old notions of power. Strength was no longer just about weapons or armies. It was about the will to endure, the determination to survive, and the unity that could be forged in the face of overwhelming odds. And the humans weren't content to rest on their laurels. They had not just won a war. They had proven to themselves and the galaxy that they were capable of something much larger. They were capable of changing the fabric of galactic politics. The victory over the Carrack had been a rallying cry, not just for humans, but for other species who had long been oppressed by the Carrack's iron fist. The humans had opened a door, one that others now sought to walk through. One of the first to approach humanity was the Volteri, a fierce warrior race that had long been a rival to the Carrack. For centuries, the Volteri had maintained their position as a dominant military power, but now they saw in the humans something they had never anticipated, an opportunity to forge a new kind of alliance. The Volteri leaders understood the importance of strength in battle, but they had begun to recognize that it was the human spirit that had turned the tide. They approached the humans with a proposition, a strategic partnership, one based on mutual respect rather than domination. For the first time, the Volteri were willing to listen to what humans had to offer, not just militarily, but diplomatically. The Araxians, too, sought to understand humanity. As a species of philosophers, they were deeply fascinated by the philosophical implications of humanity's victory. How could a species so young, so seemingly insignificant in the grand scale of the galaxy, possess such an unyielding drive? The Araxians sent emissaries to Earth, eager to engage in discourse, to learn the deeper motivations that had fueled humanity's resistance. In their eyes, the human will to survive was not just a matter of instinct. It was a philosophy in itself, one that had the potential to change the way the entire galaxy viewed strength and survival. Yet, even as new alliances began to form, there were still remnants of the old guard who refused to accept the new reality. The Carrack, though retreating, had not forgotten their defeat. In the shadows, their leadership remained bitter and resentful, plotting their eventual return to reclaim their lost honor. But they, too, knew that their path forward would be forever changed. The fear of humanity's potential now lingered in their minds, and the Carrack, for the first time in millennia, found themselves questioning their own invincibility. However, for the humans, there was no turning back. Their victory had not just proven that they could defend their home. It had shown the galaxy that they could challenge the very nature of power itself. The humans, once seen as a fractured and vulnerable species, had become a rallying cry for the oppressed and a beacon for the weary. Their battle had not just been against the Carrack. It had been against the idea that power could only be wielded through domination and fear. Humanity's influence began to spread, not through military conquest, but through diplomacy, through the idea that unity and resilience could be just as powerful as any weapon. The galaxy was no longer a place ruled by fear. It was slowly becoming a place where hope could flourish, where the will to fight for something greater could unite even the most disparate of species. And so, humanity stood, not as a species defined by their past struggles, but as a force that had irrevocably altered the future. The Carrack had learned the hard way that no matter how powerful one may be, there are forces in the universe that cannot be controlled. And humanity, through their courage, determination, and spirit, had become one of those forces. The galaxy would never be the same again. And the humans, though only beginning their journey among the stars, had already proven that they were untouchable, not because of their technology, their weapons, or their numbers, but because of the one thing that no enemy could ever conquer, their unwavering will to survive.